The record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. For the record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
For the record. For the record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today is Wednesday, the 5th of February, 2020. I hope and I trust that everyone had a restful, enjoyable evening. Those of you who are on the roads of the Cayman Islands, again, whether you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, operating any type of motorized vehicle on the roads of the Cayman Islands, we urge you to please be extremely careful. Please ensure that you observe the rules of the road. Remember that the life you save may be your own. We know that it can be extremely frustrating out there, but in all of the chaos, someone needs to keep their cool. So if you ensure that you're that individual who can and will keep your cool while out there in traffic, then everything will be okay. Everyone will get to their destination safely as well. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. As you know, For the Record is a show produced by the staff and management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orrett Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. Phone lines are always open, and there's always someone there waiting to take your calls. Again, this morning, that beautiful radio voice of Miss Susan Watson. You can call us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. If you don't like to talk on the telephone, email us at fortherecord, one word, fortherecord at candw.ky. WhatsApp us on 925-3261, where you can send us a text message or leave us a voice note, the contents of which will be played during the course of the show. And of course, you can follow us on YouTube simply by subscribing to Radio Cayman live stream. Going to do a little bit of housekeeping. On Monday's show, I didn't get an opportunity to convey condolences to Miss Michelle Torrens and her family in Florida, and that was coming from Miss Phyllis Moxham. And on Monday, she also wanted to emphasize that on Tuesday that we should all celebrate Tuesday as a day of prayer, giving thanks after surviving an earthquake a week prior to that as well. So for those of you who have lost loved ones during the past few days, the past few weeks, we want to extend our sincere condolences to you, and we hope and we trust that your faith will help to carry you through these very challenging times. Those of you who are celebrating a birthday today or who have celebrated a birthday in the past few days, we want to wish you a happy birthday or a belated happy birthday as well. And this morning, I'd like to give a special shout out to former MLA, former minister, Mr. Ralston Anglin, who celebrates a birthday today, February 5th. He celebrates a birthday today. So I want to wish him a happy birthday, give him a big shout out this morning as well. We have no guest in the studio yet, but I have communicated with Mr. Ezard Miller yesterday, and he did confirm that he will be on the show. I'm sure that he's probably caught out there in traffic. And I do believe that the Public Accounts Committee may be meeting as well. So, meantime, we're going to certainly have an open line for you to give you an opportunity to call in and to express your concerns, or if you have any information that you wish to share with us, we certainly would welcome those as well. So much happening in the Cayman Islands these days. And again, one of the topical issues in the Cayman Islands has to do with the traffic on the roads of the Cayman Islands. And we continue to see the National Roads Authority, the government, doing what is physically possible to enhance the road conditions to allow traffic to move smoothly on the roads of the Cayman Islands. But there's a limitation as to what can be done in that regard. There's no question that we have to take a multi-pronged approach to the issue of traffic in the Cayman Islands. We have to look at a proper public transport system. We have to look at whether or not we can continue to have an open-ended policy when it comes to the importation of vehicles in the Cayman Islands. That has to do with the age of the vehicles that we allow in, we will allow to import vehicles into the Cayman Islands. There is consensus out there that every Tom, Dick, and Harry should not be able to import a car into the Cayman Islands, especially if you are coming to the Cayman Islands on a contractual basis with no guarantee that you will be allowed to stay here for any extended period of time or to even establish roots in the Cayman Islands, and whether or not those persons should be allowed to leave a lasting burden on the Cayman Islands by being able to import vehicles, because then we have to talk about disposal and all of those other issues as well. So it has to be a multi-pronged approach to the traffic problem, including a revision of our driving test, the road test, and the written test, because there are many jurisdictions that people come from who do have driver's license in other jurisdictions, but those jurisdictions, the testing regime that they have in place, or whether or not they have one, is questionable as well. Many do not have written tests. I have pointed out to you before, Jamaica's just now establishing written tests, but there has been a rush in the meantime for people to beat that deadline and to apply for learner's permit before the time. I think we have about 4 callers queued up, so I announced that open line. We're going to try to take all of those callers, and we're going to ask every caller to recognize the fact that someone is behind them waiting as well. Let's go to the first caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I've been sitting in the back, brother.
How are things?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm up here. My tomatoes are starting to ripe. Everything is beautiful. The birds are singing.
Great.
Everything. Anyhow, I listen to what you're saying. The word is on the street, right? Come to the Cayman Islands, you do anything. Listen, if you check into how much people that is here on permits and permanent residency that have their own rental car business, they rent to certain sectors of the community. No policing. Out. You know how much people... Oh, so you lived in New York, right?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Good. Do you know when the local in New York got on the street, he just held down a cab and he's gone, right? Right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no cabs here dealing with the locals, you know. So that void is taken up by other people bringing in cars, using them illegal and running their own taxi business. This is real. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
This is real. And look out, 60% of the workers that here doing a job, construction, labor job, they got their license here. Where they came from, they could not get a license. And number one, the people that teaching them to drive knows nothing about driving. And when they get in their car, it's like, you see a nigga with a cell phone, you don't tell him to turn that off, you know. He'll kill you. This is my phone. So when they get on the road, this is my car. I drive it how I please. And that is plain and simple. Now, also, I was reading the paper about Mr. Anthony Eden with the gay business.
Uh-huh.
Preaching in hatred and doom. But I want to find out, he said that the gay business caused the hurricane, the earthquake and all that. I wonder if Jesus not speaking to us because we locked up our young Caymanian in prison for ganja, that Jesus go. I want Mr. Anthony Eden to answer that. So you have a nice morning. God bless.
Thank you very much for that, caller. See if we can grab another caller before we go to commercial break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. Osi. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm fine, sir. How are you?
This is Jamo.
Hey, Jamo.
I'm calling because the topic you touched on about traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The Cayman Islands Youth Assembly is actually researching into solutions for it. And I was just checking to see if I could ask you publicly if the Cayman Islands Youth Assembly could have a forum with you on For the Record to just have this discussion hashed out and share some of their findings from their research.
That's an excellent idea. Let me look for the first opening that we will have. Okay. I think you have my number. Yes, and I may have yours as well, and we will coordinate on that. Because, yes, we need to hear from our young people because they certainly are the future, and what we should be doing, what we do now will certainly impact their lives later on. And they need to be a part of the discussion. They need to be a part of the dialogue in terms of what occurs in the Cayman Islands.
All right. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, Jamo, for that. We're going to take a commercial break. We still have a few calls on hold. Just want to let you know we will take your call as soon as we return from this commercial break. So please stay tuned.
The Cayman Islands boasts of a long, colorful, and rich history. In tribute to our roots, Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands, is pleased to bring you the historical vignette series, sponsored by Cayman National Bank. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs. The Cayman Islands, he hath founded it upon the seas.
In his letter to the micro-trustees in May of 1839, Mr. Malcolm, who set up the first school in Bontown but received opposition for teaching white and non-whites together, wrote, "The white population have a most inveterate hatred against the blacks, and they have told me that I must erect 2 galleries, one for white and the other for the black children, that I must make a distinction in my school, but I have invariably told them I would not, I have told my children that I would make no distinction between black and white, and that a good boy is a good boy whether he is black or white, and that I would respect him because he was a good boy and not because he was a white boy. Mr. Malcolm was described by the black and brown population as a good and great man who not only taught their children but attended to the sick and, in the absence of an ordained minister, preached twice each Sunday. Information from this historical vignette was sourced from Founded Upon the Seas, A History of the Cayman Islands and Their People by Michael Creighton and the New History Committee. Radio Cayman's historical facts vignettes are proudly brought to you by Cayman National, with branches on all 3 Cayman Islands. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Since March 2004, West Bay Pharmacy has kept their doors open to the local communities, even before, during, and after Hurricane Ivan. At West Bay Pharmacy, our staff provides so much more than pharmaceutical excellence. From the moment you walk through our doors to completing your cash out, our staff will have put your healthcare concerns at ease. We would like to take this moment to thank our loyal friends and customers. To us at West Bay Pharmacy, our patients are our primary concern. We provide thorough background checks and precise calculations to ensure your medical safety. Thank you for being a part of our family and for choosing West Bay Pharmacy, where we care about your health.
2020 means perfect vision, and if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Hold up. Just 2 of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 1-800-534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. Ms. Susan, do we have any calls on hold? One caller on hold. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Ms. Dosey. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. And yourself?
I'm blessed and highly favored.
Great.
Ramelia, welcome this morning, joining you. Okay, I have a concern regarding our police. Okay? Now, first I want to ask a question. If whether it's in town, whether it's Webster's Estate, whether it's Prospect, Windsor Park, or Watlers Road, if you have a vehicle parked on the side of the road that is taking up 1 lane of that road, 2 vehicles cannot pass freely. Isn't that what you could call it?
Obstruction?
Obstruction to traffic?
Yes, blocking traffic, yeah.
Oh, it is, right? According to the law, the traffic law, sometimes 2 vehicles cannot pass freely. It is obstruction to traffic. A beat officer gave a family member of an inspector, a ticket for parking on the side of the road, taking up 1 lane of the road. 2 vehicles cannot pass freely. The inspector, the family member called the inspector. The sergeant flew home, all wild up inside of the beat officer's face, called her superiors, and she still gave him the ticket. Mm-hmm. And claiming like a week after, it went to court and the judge threw it out. I have been investigating it, why the judge threw it out. I contacted the commissioner and asked the commissioner to look into it.
Okay.
I got word that...
Of course, the commissioner doesn't have any control over the judiciary.
Okay. I got word that an inspector went to the courthouse to find out what became of the ticket, and there was nothing written on the file. Now that tells me, and have me feeling, like that ticket did not made it before the judge. How was it thrown out?
Okay. Now, was it a ticket just to pay a fine, or the person was summoned to go to court?
No, the ticket was just to pay the fine.
Okay, so it wouldn't involve a judge at all. Then it would. It's just an administrative procedure where you go and you pay the fine.
You go and you pay the fine.
Right.
But then if you pay the fine, it wouldn't be dismissed. It wouldn't be thrown out. If they're saying the magistrate throw it out. Why didn't the magistrate put on top of the file reason for being thrown out? They claimed there was no parking signs. There were no double yellow lines.
Caller, I'm a little confused though. I'm trying to determine whether or not the person was summoned and had to appear before a magistrate because they actually charged them as opposed to it being an automatic parking fine.
No, well, if you dispute it, you can go to court and have them pull the file and pull the ticket. You can go to court and have them pull the ticket.
If you decline to pay the ticket, then that means you're challenging the ticket, and then you go to trial.
Yes. But then at the end of the day, they're saying that it was thrown. The magistrate threw it out. And if the magistrate threw it out, OC, why isn't there no on the file why it was thrown out or reason being? That I don't understand.
Well, if the case has been disposed of, there has to be a case file and a case record held in the court. You don't just go before a magistrate. When you go into court, there's a file that has been established by the prosecution. The judge is given either a copy of that file or given the details of what the case is. So that there has to be a court record. There has to be.
No, there's none. An inspector went to the courthouse to find out what became of the ticket and came back and reported that there's nothing written on the file.
Okay.
We need to believe that the file did not went before the judge and there's some sort of corruption going on there.
Okay, I'm not going to even attempt to try to solve it here, but you say that you have been in contact with the commissioner of police, with it, so maybe you would want to wait to see what he comes back to you with on that?
He comes back and he says that if he spoke to someone in the court and they said that it was thrown out because there was no double yellow lines, there was no parking sign. But at the end of the day, they chose to come in to a parking lot, the parking lot behind Margaritaville, and gave me a ticket for parking inside of a parking lot. How ironic is that? Yet they parked on the main road, and ticket got thrown out. According to them, it was dismissed by the judge. And at the end of the day, there's nothing written on that file.
Well, I'm at a loss. I can't really tell you about the file and what's written on it, what the court procedures are. I don't know who would have access to those files to see what was written on the file. Not sure, but maybe the person should go to the courthouse themselves and try to determine exactly what it is. I'm sure that there are freedom of information. You can make a freedom of information request in relation to the disposition of the case as well. And I would advise anyone who has any concerns to make a freedom of information request in relation to the particular case to the judicial administration. Okay.
I did, still not getting the answer.
Did you made an written FOI request to them?
No, I emailed the clerk of the court.
And you?
I emailed the clerk of the court. She responded to me. I need to send her an email regarding how did it affect my family member. I never asked her or told her it was affecting my family member. I am simply asking an explanation why there's nothing written on this file.
I don't think a FOI request is limited to whether or not it affects your family. If it's a public interest issue, then that FOI request, should be granted. What you want to do is you want to make sure that you clarify to them that you're making a request under the Freedom of Information law. But I urge you to, if you really want answers in it, keep pushing. Sooner or later, you should be able to get them.
Of course, and if they're saying that it's not wrong, it's not against the law, why have they refrained from parking in the road? They don't no longer park there.
Yeah. Well, I'll say to you, caller, and you are familiar with, one of the areas because it's one of the areas that you work in. If you go into the Rockhole area at night, you will see cars parked on both sides of the road, and I God forbid that an emergency vehicle has to go in that area, either a fire truck or an ambulance or something. It is going to be extremely difficult. So there are lots of roads where that is going on, and hopefully we won't wait until there's a catastrophe that occurs before we address the issue. I want to thank you very much, caller, for that. When we're almost at the top of the hour for our 8 o'clock news, one of our listeners on Monday, either Monday or Friday, called in and wanted to know the qualifications for elected membership in our Legislative Assembly. And one of our listeners did send me a link, but I was unable to address it at that particular show. When we return at 8 o'clock, if our guest is not in the studio yet, I will look at Section 61 of the Cayman Islands Constitution and share with you the qualities that you have to have if you want to run for elected office and to be a member of our Legislative Assembly, soon to be called Parliament. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back immediately after the 8 o'clock news.
Thank you, Mr. Connor. And studio time by Foster's is 7:59.
The Foster's Pharmacy, located inside Foster's Airport and Foster's Camana Bay, is your one-stop pharmacy for prescriptions, vitamins, and supplements, blood pressure checks, online refills, and more. Simply drop off your prescription before your grocery shop and pick it up when you're done. They'll even ship your prescriptions to Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. Sometimes life interrupts paradise. Get back to the beach with a little help from Foster's Pharmacy.
The voice of the Cayman Islands.
89.9 FM in Grand Cayman and 93.9 FM in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman.
Silver wings shining in the sunlight.
Radio Cayman.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by Value Med Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy. Value Med Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop Value Med for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit Value Med, more than just a pharmacy.
Your voice, your choice for today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
With your latest news, I'm Carsley Fuller. A new book has been published by Truman Bodden Law School's Academic Press, written by Law School Deputy Director Scott Atkins. The 3rd edition of the Equity and Trusts book explores the English law of trusts and is designed to guide undergraduate students at the law school in understanding an area which is traditionally seen as complex and difficult. Mr. Atkins says it's a tricky subject, but the book is written in a user-friendly manner and will support and underpin the students' learning while giving them a rounded knowledge of the law of trusts. And with its 2-night run selling out in less than 24 hours, the team at Thespian and Proud announces an extra encore performance of the Vagina Monologues. Co-organizer Kirsty O'Sullivan tells Radio Cayman rehearsals are going well, with the first run-through with the entire cast done this past weekend. The local production is a fundraiser for the Cayman Islands Crisis Center, and Miss O'Sullivan says considering the popularity of the show, they decided to add a third performance to give them the chance to raise even more money for the nonprofit.
So luckily our cast was more than willing to perform a third time, and the Prospect Playhouse offered us, or rather I nagged the Prospect Playhouse to let us put on a third night there. So we are using their venue for the third one. It's really exciting. We're really delighted that we've had so much support. And between the Flow Yoga Garden and the Prospect Playhouse for the third night, we've got two great venues hosting to make sure that we have a great performance for all those that wanted to see it.
Shows are Friday and Saturday this weekend at the Flow Yoga Garden next to Flower Power, with the encore performance on Sunday.
People should come to this performance if they were swithering over buying tickets, or if they heard people getting tickets and missed out. Don't miss out again. I've never ever known somebody to leave the Vagina Monologues and regret attending. I have known people to have some genuinely life-changing moments, or to have some big realizations, or even on occasion to seek help for something that they were burying within themselves. So I think it's a really important piece, and I think the more people that see it, the better.
The New York Times has called the Vagina Monologues one of the most important pieces of political theater of the last decade. There are a few tickets left for this Sunday's show. You can find information at caymanactive.com/vday. In regional news, Antigua and Barbuda has become the latest Caribbean community country to prevent the cruise ship AID Perla with more than 3,000 passengers on board from docking. A spokesperson from the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Environment said that officials had reviewed the Maritime Health Declaration submitted on February 3rd and discovered that it was insufficient to make a proper assessment of the health situation on the vessel. A spokesperson said as a result, additional crucial information was requested but not provided in a timely manner, and consequently the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Environment was not able to support a decision to allow the ship to berth and recommended the cancellation of its call at the St. John's Harbor. Now with the check of international news, here's the BBC, which will take us out of the newscast. I'm Karsley Fuller from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
BBC News with Jerry Smith. The Chinese authorities say they've increased efforts to control the spread of the new coronavirus, with approximately 18 million people in central and eastern China now required to stay at home. In some parts of Hubei and Zhejiang provinces, just one person per household is permitted to go outside every 2 days in order to buy necessities. Chinese health authorities say the number of suspected cases has decreased thanks to better testing that allows negative cases to be ruled out. Hong Kong has ordered visitors from mainland China to enter a 2-week compulsory quarantine. However, the Chinese territory's leader, Carrie Lam, is still resisting calls to completely close the border, despite an ongoing strike by some medical staff. An award-winning Malaysian journalist faces 3 charges of causing public fear over a Facebook post expressing alarm at the eruption carrying 1,000 Chinese tourists in Penang State. President Trump has delivered his State of the Union address to a deeply partisan U.S. Congress on the eve of his likely acquittal in the Senate on impeachment charges. He strongly defended his policies, saying they had led to what he called the Great American Comeback. As he concluded, the Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ripped her copy of the speech in half. BBC News.
The 8 a.m. news is brought to you by ValueMed Pharmacy, with 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and an Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy. ValueMed Pharmacy is your community care partner for health and wellness needs. We offer convenient prescription processing at the counter and online at value-medpharmacy.com. That's VALU-medpharmacy.com, with pickup available at the Walkers Road or Boddentown location. We also accept transfer prescriptions from other pharmacies. More than just a pharmacy, shop ValueMed for personal care and beauty products from trusted brands, perfume and gift sets, Hallmark and greeting cards, baby clothes, footwear, handbags, swimwear, home decor, toys, school supplies, and stationery. And home convalescence aids like wheelchairs, walkers, crutches, canes, and hospital beds. With 2 locations to serve you, Walkers Road in Georgetown and in Evron Plaza, Boddentown. Visit ValueMed, more than just a pharmacy.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
If your business is over here, but your customers are over here, adding more yellow to your business will bring you both right here. With everyone searching yellows, print, online, and mobile app, getting your business noticed is easier than ever. Book your consultation today at findyellow.com.
The Weather Report is proudly sponsored by Super Stitch Sewing and Fabric Center, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Super Stitch. We are known for our amazing fabrics, top quality tailoring, and dressmaking. But did you know that we also carry trimmings, glitter, sequins, acrylic paints for fabrics and craft, floral wire, glues, markers, foam balls, and assorted ribbons? Yes, we do. You have a do-it-yourself project? Just pop into Super Stitch and see what we have in store for you. There is a craft item for your every need.
My favorite, the beads, glass ones, flat, and even those shell ones.
Super Stitch, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Pleasant good morning. Let's take a look at the latest weather report. Current temperature is 78 degrees. Relative humidity is 91%. Barometric pressure 29.98 inches on rising. The wind is east at 8 knots. Overnight low temperature was 74 degrees. Isolated showers are expected today as residual moisture left behind from the recent cold front moves across the Cayman area. Radar images show showers in and around the Cayman area moving towards the northwest. Now the forecast for today calling for partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times, with a 30% chance of showers, and temperatures will be in the low 80s. Your winds will be southeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be moderate with wave heights of 3 to 5 feet. And the forecast for tonight calling for partly cloudy skies, becoming cloudy at times, with a 30% chance of late night showers, and temperatures dipping to the low 70s tonight. Your winds will be east to southeast at 10 to 15 knots, and seas will be slight to moderate, with wave heights of 2 to 4 feet. We're presently at a high tide, and the next low tide will be this afternoon at 1:50, and a high tide again this evening at 6:43. Sunset 6:19, sunrise 6:59, and the outlook is calling for an increase in winds and seas from Thursday morning as a low pressure system moves across the southern United States. That's the very latest on your weather report.
Superstitch Sewing and Fabric Center was the proud sponsor of the Weather Report, your one-stop shop for all of your household items, craft items, jewelry, beads, and decorations, and much more. Call Superstitch at 949-2833 or email customer care at superstitch.com.ky.
Super Stitch. We are known for our amazing fabrics, top quality tailoring, and dressmaking. But did you know that we also carry trimmings, glitter, sequins, acrylic paints for fabrics and craft, floral wire, glues, markers, foam balls, and assorted ribbons? Yes, we do. You have a do-it-yourself project? Just pop into Super Stitch and see what we have in store for you. There is a craft item for your every need.
My favorite, the beads, glass ones, flat, and even those shell ones.
Super Stitch, your one-stop household store at 39 Pasadora Place, Smith Road. Still offering the best prices in town. Call 949-2833 or go to superstitch.com.ky.
Good morning once again. Let's take a look at traffic. Crawling traffic coming from the east on Shamrock Road and the Linford Pearson Highway. Delays expected and a lot of patience needed this morning as you're heading down to Georgetown. Busy traffic coming off of Bobby Thompson Way and also off the Linford Pearson Highway and Agnes Way. Traffic is busy in some sections of Crew Road. Other sections of Crew Road, traffic moving along steadily. And coming from the West Bay 4-way stop, moderate flow of traffic in both directions. And on Godfrey Nixon Way and Eastern Avenue, traffic is flowing moderately. And in and out of Georgetown on Shedden Road, traffic not looking too bad as traffic is flowing nicely. And on the West Bay Road in front of the Ritz, traffic is steady heading to Georgetown, and from Georgetown heading to West Bay, moderate flow of traffic on the West Bay Road. Esterly Tibbetts Highway, traffic is moderate in both directions, in some sections steady. And on North Sound Road, moderate flow of traffic. Some cruise ships already in port, so be aware of that as you maneuver downtown Georgetown, and look out for pedestrians as they make their way across the streets of Georgetown. That's the very latest on your traffic. Join us again at about 10 minutes after 12. We'll give you another traffic outlook. Remember, click it or ticket.
For the health of it, Radio Cayman's premier health show is brought to you by Healthcare Pharmacy, the Cayman Islands Civil Service Association, Holy Cross Hospital,
Cayman Fertility Center,
and EatingClean.com.
This is For the Health of It with Tara Bush.
So far, more than 175 Cayman parrot owners have registered their birds with the Department of Environment.
That's good, but we know it's not all of them.
You have until February 29th to sign up to register your parrot.
Unregistered Cayman parrots found in captivity after that will be considered illegal.
Remember, registration allows you to legally keep your bird. We don't want to take away anyone's pet.
So do what's right.
Register your Cayman parrot and help us protect our national bird.
For more information, contact the Department of Environment.
Your favorite family fun day is back. The 53rd Annual Agriculture Show at the Stacey Watler Agricultural Pavilion in Lower Valley. Theme, Agriculture for the Future. Ash Wednesday, February 26th. Family fun for everyone. Acrobatic show, cooking competitions, produce, plants, pony rides, petting zoo, rodeo, and so much more. Gates open at 7 a.m. with ample parking. General admission is only $10. Children ages 2 through 11, $5. And under 2 are free. Or buy your raffle ticket including entrance fee for a chance to win $20,000 and so much more. For more information, visit them on Facebook or 345agriculture@gmail.com. Put down your iPad and get back to your roots at the 53rd Annual Agricultural Show, February 26th in Lower Valley.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system. For information that matters. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio. So again, we will continue with our open line for you this morning. Any callers on hold, Miss Susan? Okay. If you can hold those calls for a minute, then I want to look at qualifications for elected membership of our Legislative Assembly as outlined in our Constitution, the Cayman Islands Constitution Order 2009. And under Section 61, which reads that subject to Section 62, a person shall be qualified to be elected as a member of the Legislative Assembly if and shall not be qualified to be so elected unless. So you will be qualified to be elected if, number one, the individual is Caymanian, right? So you first have to be a Caymanian. Secondly, in order to be eligible to be elected as a legislator in our Legislative Assembly, you have to be at least 21 years of age. So Caymanian, 1, Caymanian, 2, 21 years of age. And the individual is at the date of their nomination for election domiciled and resident in the Cayman Islands. So 1, Caymanian, 2, age 21 of years, at least age 21, at the date of being nominated for election, you must be domiciled and resident in the Cayman Islands. It's not domiciled or resident. You have to be domiciled and, combination of the two. So you have to have 1, you have to have 2, you have to have 3, and then you also have to be a qualified citizen. And later on, I will explain to you what a qualified citizen is. Now, here's the part that gets a little convoluted, and we want to get to that, right? Says he or she, the individual, was born in the Cayman Islands, right? You have to be either born in the Cayman Islands or was born outside the Cayman Islands in the circumstances mentioned in subsection 2B and has resided in the Cayman Islands for a period of not less than 7 years immediately preceding the date of the nomination for election, and subject to subsection 3, the number of days on which the person has been absent from the islands does not exceed 400 days, right? So let's parse that out there again, right? You have to be either born in the Cayman Islands, or if you were born outside of the Cayman Islands under certain circumstances, you have to have resided in the Cayman Islands for a period not less than 7 years, and you can't be absent from the islands for a period of 400 days within that 7-year period, right? So that was if you were born in the Cayman Islands. Now, there's another option that if you weren't born in the Cayman Islands, if you were born outside the Cayman Islands. Now, remember now, you have to have all the other qualifications before. You have to be a Caymanian. You have to be age 21 or over. You have to be, at the date of nomination, you have to be domiciled and resident in the Cayman Islands. And then you have to be a qualified citizen and either born in the Cayman Islands, and I have read to you the circumstances, if you were born in the Cayman Islands, what criteria you have to meet there, or if you were born outside of the Cayman Islands. But remember, you still have to be Caymanian, age 21, domicile and resident in the Cayman Islands, and if you were born outside of the Cayman Islands, and if you have resided in the Cayman Islands for a period or periods amounting to not less than 15 years out of the 20 years immediately preceding the date of his nomination for election, and subject to subsection 3, in 7 years immediately preceding the date of the nomination, the number of days absent from the islands cannot exceed 400 days. So you can be Caymanian, you can be age 21 or over, you have to be domicile and resident at the date of nomination. You have to be a qualified citizen, and if you were born outside the Cayman Islands, then you have to be resident in the Cayman Islands for a period or periods amounting to not less than 15 years. And of the last 7 years immediately preceding the date of nomination, you can't be absent from the islands for more than 400 days. Okay? Now, I told you that there was one quality that you also had to have, which was that you had to be a qualified citizen. So this subsection now explains to you what a qualified citizen is. And it says that for the purposes of that particular section, a qualified citizen is a British Overseas Territories citizen by virtue of a connection with the Cayman Islands who either at the date of nomination for election possesses no other citizenship and is pursuing no claim to any other citizenship for which he or she may be eligible, or was born outside the Cayman Islands, has or had at least one parent or grandparent who was born in the Cayman Islands and is Caymanian, or if deceased, would, if alive, have been a Caymanian at the date of nomination for election, and who at the date of nomination for election possesses no other citizenship, save for any right he or she may have to some other citizenship by virtue of his or her birth outside the Cayman Islands. So you could be born outside the Cayman Islands, but you had to have a parent or grandparent who was born in the Cayman Islands, or if that parent or grandparent is deceased, and if they were alive, would have been Caymanian, then you would qualify. Now, we know that we have had some test cases in the Cayman Islands in relation to qualifications for elected membership into our legislative assembly, and that area has been sort of resolved by the courts. So the section also goes on to point out that the words other citizenship does not include British citizenship acquired by virtue of the British Overseas Territories Act 2002. Now, why is that in there? The reason that is in there was because in 2002, the UK conferred British citizenship on all British Overseas Territories citizens, those who were citizens at that time. It conferred citizenship. So some person in the Cayman Islands had British Overseas Territories citizenship as well as British citizenship. And if that section had not been put in there, that explanation that citizenship does not include British citizenship that was acquired by virtue of the British Overseas Territories Act 2008, it would have disqualified Caymanians who would have otherwise been qualified, but it would have disqualified them because they had that British citizenship. And we know that at the time that the British said to us, well, our question was, how do I acquire British citizenship? And their answer to us at that time was, when you apply for a British passport, by applying for it and obtaining it, that in itself triggered your British citizenship. Some people had questions about that because if you don't apply for a British passport, then you're not British. Is it the passport that makes you British, or is it the legislation that was passed in 2002? Because that legislation doesn't say that you have to apply for a passport to be British. So there was some confusion with that, but the authorities in the UK say, well, you activate your citizenship by applying for a passport. We have some callers that we want to accommodate. Let's go to the phone lines. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm good. This is Steve McField.
Yes, sir.
All right. The first thing that you will notice in section 1661 is that the word Caymanian.
Yes.
Now, the Constitution is the primary law of the land. It is the first law of the land. It is the law of all laws.
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain why then that the qualifications in Section 60 is you have to be a Caymanian, but there's no definition of what a Caymanian is in the Constitution. The Constitution leaves it to the immigration law.
Yes.
Isn't that an anomaly? Isn't that dropping the ball?
Yeah, and during the constitutional discussions, there were people there who wanted to have the definition of Caymanian enshrined in our constitution, because we bear in mind that our immigration legislation has changed over the years and can be subject to change again.
Change tomorrow.
Right, and one of the arguments was then that if you change the definition of Caymanian in our election law, then it automatically, because the Constitution says it is what it is in our election law, then you don't have to continue to change your Constitution. But there are those, and there are many countries who have established their constitutions in such a way that it defines the citizenship in the Constitution.
Right. Number two, the absence of your presence. The clause that says the absence of your presence cannot be for more than 400 days or 7 years.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is very, very, very important. It does not mean that, just because you're absent, you're still resident. It clearly defines that you have to be a resident.
Mm-hmm. And domiciled.
Domicile is also another word that has not been defined, because domicile can be anything.
Yep. State of mind.
In Canada, and all of those places, domicile means if you have a grey plot. If you have clothes in a closet hanging up and you intend to come back to Canada, or you intend to live there, you're still domiciled.
Yep.
Okay. The absence of your presence for 400 days out of the 7 years. That is very important, because it goes on to give an exemption from the absence of your presence for 400 days.
Mm-hmm.
It says if you are in Her Majesty's service.
Yes.
If you are working on a ship.
Mm-hmm.
If you are working on an airplane.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you are attending a Institute of Fire Learning.
Student, yep.
Or if you are a patient in a hospital. If any one of those happen to you, then that does not count for your absence.
Right.
But you cannot be out of the country. The absence of your presence in a country cannot be for more than 400 days out of the 7 years in which you have been there.
Correct.
You have to add them up to see in 7 years whether you've been away for more than 400 days.
But isn't that an onerous task? To have to go back and calculate, well, yes, I was gone for 2 weeks this time, another week, this time, quite onerous.
Well, it may be onerous, but that's the law.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm.
That's the law.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And the claim to no other citizenship.
Yes.
Now, the Attorney General in the Rivers case argued, and also the QC from England argued that there was a carve-out section in that case. But if you read the section, it says that you must not have claim to any other citizenship, and you must not be a citizen of any other country except to the fact that you were born in that other country. Hello?
Yes, Doc. Mm-hmm.
You see? And it means that even if you were born, you were exempted if you're born in another country, but then you must not do anything to claim it. You understand that?
Yep. And there have been arguments with that in terms of that when you have reached the age of majority, in most instances the age of 18, that after that time, if you then go ahead and renew your passport on your own volition, as opposed to when you were 14 and 15 that your parents did it for you, that some people have argued that in itself disqualifies you.
That's right. in Australia and in some of those other countries, you don't even have to go that far. You only have to be born there, and you're disqualified.
Yep. Yes.
Whether it's because of your parents taking you, going there to have you there, or whatever.
Yes.
You see, and so, because when you claim the other citizenship, or when you get naturalized to be a citizen of the other country, then you fall into Section 601. You owe allegiance to foreign government.
Right. Yeah.
You see?
Yep. Doc, I want to thank you very much for that. We have to go to commercial break, and we know that you have knowledge on this because you were one of the lead lawyers in the cases that went before the court. So I want you to bear this in mind, and next time we have you on here, we want to go into more detail with it on the show as well. And we do have MLA Mr. Ezra Miller in the studio, and one of the questions that I will have for him is that in relation to the suggested changes to our Constitution, whether or not any of these issues in relation to qualifications may have been a part of some, the changes that we want to make to our Constitution as well. Thank you very much for that, Doc. We still have a few callers on hold. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, I'm going to introduce my guest, Mr. Ezra Miller, and then we will grab the other callers as well. So, folks, please stay tuned. Don't change that dial because you will be on next.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Just two of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
Go Cocoa Nuts with Cocoa Fest at Pedro Castle on February 8th from 12 to 6 p.m. Indulge in all kinds of coconut things. Coconut-inspired food, treats, fresh coconut water, crafts, games, music, and more. Admission is only $5 and free for kids under 6. Proceeds from each entry fee benefit Meals on Wheels Cayman. So if you like coconut, come to Cocoa Fest at Pedro Castle February 8th. For event details, check us out on Facebook. This ad is sponsored by Fidelity Bank. We're good for you.
Hi, my name is Neraya LeBlanc. I am the minister and evangelist to the West Bay Church of Christ on 24 Batabano Road. I would love to take this opportunity to invite you to experience God's family at West Bay for yourself. We are a caring congregation that strongly believes in reaching out beyond ourselves to spread the gospel of Christ. We also take great pleasure in ministering to the needs of our people in our community. As God's called out kingdom people, we are in the business of transforming lives for the Master's use. For more information, you can visit our website at westbaycichurchofchrist.org or call us at 946-9294 or 917-1809.
Declaring the word of the Lord.
Cayman Islands Church of Christ presents Word of the Lord.
Word of the Lord, heard Sundays at 6:30 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
In recognition of the contributions made by the late David Gerard Powell, the playing field at Theoline McCoy Primary in Bordentown will be officially renamed the D. Gerard Powell Playing Field. Come out to witness this important day in our history at the official renaming ceremony taking place this Saturday, February 8th on the school's playing field. After the ceremony, stick around to watch exhibition football games by the school's football teams and an exciting scrimmage showdown between the legendary Reds and Blues. See you this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. for the ceremony. Bring your family, friends, red and blue flags for the games at 7 p.m.
System 1 loaded.
1-800-534-8255. What is on your mind when it comes to the government, independence, and the opposition? Issues that matter to you. 534-8255. Waiting to hear from you. For the record.
This is For the Record with Orrett Connor.
And we go. Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. We have two callers, but first I want to introduce my guest, Mr. Ezard Miller, representative in our Legislative Assembly. He represents the District of Northside in our Legislative Assembly, soon to be called Parliament. And he had a very, very fast travel into Georgetown this morning from Northside, starting at 6 o'clock this morning, 6:10, somewhere around there. Yeah. And he finally made it in. Mr. Miller, good morning, sir. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, well, see, it's good to be here, but I've been sitting down in my car so long. I remember Graham Thompson used to say that you sit down too long, you grow roots. So I had to put up all the roots to get at the seat. It was terrible, really. I left home about 6:10, and I got here at 8:30. And unfortunately, I have to leave at 9:30. Not because of PSC, but I have another commitment that I had arranged because I figured I'd be here from 7 and I'd leave at 9:30. But it's good to be here, and hopefully we'll have an hour and we can do some talking in that hour.
We certainly will. We certainly will. Let's see what our listeners have to say. First caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am well. I've been waiting for it, but it's a good wait because Mr. Ezard is there.
Yes.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Talking about this national situation with the virus, and I don't think that we've taken an official position yet, or at least I haven't heard about it. But anyway, yesterday I went to the hospital pharmacy area around about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I had some business to conduct upstairs, and I was on my way upstairs. I saw a relatively young person walking out of the hospital with a mask over face, over nose and mouth. I didn't think anything of it because, people now and again are sick to that extent that you can't go in to see them unless you're, kind of masked up, etc. Or people may be sick and need, just to use that as a buffer. I didn't think anything of it. I went and conducted my business, came back down. The same person was milling around the area of the pharmacy area. And, still didn't think anything of it. I know a person came outside and said, well, did you see so-and-so? I said, yes, I saw. Said, well, I asked her, why is she up here with this mask on? Said she had been to China. So he asked her, well, what's up with this? So they want to make me go home. So I'm saying, so he said, well, they're trying to do something about this international virus, so on and so forth. But my question comes down to this. Is this a hoax and this person is just, playing smart and stupid at the same time, making a spectacle of themselves? Or whether there was some meat on the bone as to the issue. Yes, this person was in this exposed area. We're trying supposedly to do something about it. But if you're trying to do something about it, I mean, old people raised me. I'm old and old people raised me. And they would talk about things like isolation. Way back in the 50s, they would talk about isolation in terms of quarantine. That, to me, that don't mean walking up and down, even with a mask over your face, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just wondering, as a health professional yourself, sir, and the previous minister, Mr. Ezard, give me some clarity on that type of situation that I saw yesterday, because I'm befuddled.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any announcement of anybody that has been quarantined, or anybody that has arrived that has been shown any symptoms of the disease. So I don't know what the situation is, but I tend to agree with you, is that if it is a legitimate case that the person has come from the area of China where this virus is so rampant, and if they're trying to contain them until the 14-day, which is the average apparently, incubation period, and if symptoms don't show up in that 14 days, then the assumption is made that you're not carrying the virus. And if the person is not showing any symptoms, I don't understand why they're making them wear a mask in quarantine. But without knowing the specifics of it, I can't give any more information on that. Now, the Minister of Health and the Premier have made certain announcements of actions that they're taking. They've committed $1 million to the program. They said they have a room. They didn't say whether it was at the hospital or where it was, that they are refurbishing and furnishing and constructing for the purposes of quarantine, and if the virus arrives on our shore. Again, we don't know whether that's a multi-habitant room or it's a single room or how it's structured, because no details were given on that. They've also made announcements, including the governor on Rooster, and he said that the National Security Council was going to discuss it yesterday afternoon. They claim that all the agencies involved, that is Customs and Border Control, the health services, and the other agencies that might be involved, the public health people, have been meeting, and they have a multi-agency plan to deal with it, and they've funded it to $1 million. So I have to assume that they have things in hand and are getting ready and are ready if the virus shows up here.
I thank you very much, but I'm just bothered by that, because if it's just kind of, even if that person needs to be in that situation with a mask on and so forth, to just be wandering outside there and
that doesn't make it. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I agree with you, but it causes people to wonder. I mean, I come home to a sick person, and I don't want to bring any sickness home to that person. Yeah, but I think what you need to do is report your observations to the authorities at the hospital, and they're the ones that should be able to give you clarity if the person is a patient at the hospital.
Lead me and guide me.
I saw somebody, I would call the medical director at the hospital and ask him that you observed this and what your conversation entailed, i.e. the person had arrived from China, and see about it. Because I saw somebody wearing a mask in A.L. Thompson's a couple of days ago, and the person next to me said, "Why are you wearing a mask?" Or he said, "I don't want to catch any flu." So I made the comment that with what's going on internationally, you shouldn't be spreading any kind of concerns if you don't,
Mm-hmm. But thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Okay, have a good day.
Thank you very much, caller, for that as well. Let's go to the next caller. Good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning, Mr. O'Connor.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Okay, and good morning, Mr. Miller.
Good morning, sir.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Concerning an individual being able to become a member of the Legislative Assembly. What does the law state if that individual was ever given a prison sentence? Thank you.
Okay, caller, stand by your phone. We will have that information for you, because there is a section in the Constitution that deals with disqualification for elected membership in our Legislative Assembly. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, the conversation will continue with our listeners and with MLA, Mr. Ezra Miller. So please stay tuned.
It was a day that changed my life. No words can describe the feelings of seeing my baby boy sick for the first time. The overwhelming feeling of fear to be responsible for his health and happiness became my priority. So I did what any nurturing mother would do when their baby is sick. I took him to get some of the best medicine possible.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation
on a daily basis, making it easy to connect with you, our listeners. Add us to WhatsApp today, 925-3261. That's 925-3261.
Radio Cayman.
Send a text or voice note.
Can I send a request, please?
You don't really have to ask us. Just send a request.
This is a shout out to my ex.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman, maintaining the innovation.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. For the benefit of the last caller, Section 62 of our Constitution deals with disqualifications for elected membership. And how are you disqualified? It says here, no person shall be qualified to be elected as a member of the Legislative Assembly who, A, is by virtue of his or her own act under acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, or adherence to a foreign power or state. And you heard Dr. Steve McField mention that earlier. A person is also disqualified if they are holding or they are acting in any public office. So if you're a public servant, either holding or acting in that position, you're not eligible to be elected. If you have a public service job, you would have to give up that job.
And there's a thing in election law now that says 2 years, right? Because of the Chucky, Mr. Bush court case.
No,
or not just for senior top people in government.
Well, it would still have to be in the Constitution as opposed to the immigration law.
Not immigration, election law.
The election law. It would still have to be in the Constitution, but I'll double check that.
I think there's some change. I know it wasn't in the Constitution, but I think it's something in the election law that says something about senior civil servants having to wait a period of time.
We can take a look at that. Also, a person is disqualified if they have been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in any part of the Commonwealth or in the United States. So if you're bankrupt, not only in Cayman, but any part of the Commonwealth or in the United States of America, and if that bankruptcy declaration has not been discharged. You're also disqualified if you are certified to be insane or otherwise adjudged to be of unsound mind under any law in force in the Cayman Islands. Also, subject to certain provisions, if the person is serving or has served a sentence of imprisonment, or if it is called by some other name, if they've been sentenced, has served a sentence exceeding 12 months imposed by him or her by a court in any country or substituted by competent authority for some other sentence imposed on him or her by such a court, or is under a sentence of imprisonment, the execution of which has been suspended or has been convicted by any court in any country of an offense involving dishonesty. So I'm going to take that backwards. If you convicted of dishonesty, you're not eligible.
Right.
If you're serving a suspended sentence, you're not eligible. If you've been sentenced to by a court for a term of imprisonment exceeding 12 months, you are not eligible to run for elected office in the Cayman Islands. A person is also disqualified if the person is disqualified for election by any law enforcing the Cayman Islands by reason of his or her holding or acting in any office, the functions of which involve responsibility for or in connection with the conduct of an election. So if you're a returning officer, presiding officer, whatever, you can't be a candidate as well. You would have to give that up. Or if you're a party to or a partner in any firm or a director or manager of a company which is a party to any contract with the government for on or an account of the public service and has not within the period of 1 month immediately preceding the date of an election in which he or she is a candidate caused to be published in a government notice setting out the nature of such contract and his or her interests or the interests of any such firm or company in it. And we, again, had court cases in that regard. The person is not eligible if they're disqualified for membership of the Legislative Assembly by any law enforcing the Cayman Islands relating to the offense committed in connection with an election. So, like, let's say, for instance, if you were convicted for bribery in an election or something of that nature, you would not be, qualified as well. And then it goes on to say, talk about when a person is serving 2 or more sentences of imprisonment that are required to be served consecutively, he or she shall throughout the whole time during which he or she so serves be regarded as serving a sentence exceeding 12 months if, but not unless, any one of those sentences exceeds that term. So if you were serving 2 6-month sentences, for instance, you can't add those 2 6-month sentences and say, now, you had a year. One of those sentences has to be exceeding a year for you to be disqualified.
But if you're sentenced to a year and you get out in 6 months and you're still under release,
right?
you still can't.
Once the sentence has been, imposed in terms of, and it also says that no account shall be taken of a sentence of imprisonment imposed by an alternative to or in default of the payment of a fine. So what that means is that if you were convicted and sentenced to pay a fine.
You didn't pay the fine.
Right.
Or you're put in jail because you didn't pay a fine.
That does not disqualify you as well. Okay. That covers all of that, Mr. Miller. Mm-hmm. Mike, is over to you again, sir.
Well, you were asking me about. You said you were going to ask me about.
About the
whether the qualifications was a matter that was under discussion in the last constitutional changes, and the answer is outright no.
No. Mm-hmm.
Now, I am one of those who believes that there needs to be a more comprehensive review of our Constitution, particularly that section of the Constitution, because I think we need to tighten up some of the areas in the definition of who can sit in our Legislative Assembly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And quite frankly, I think we need to be more restrictive. One of the things that I would like to see change in there, that you have to be born in the Cayman Islands of at least one Cayman parent, and make it crystal clear. Because how it is now, there are too many dubious years. I think we need to get rid of all of this business about the time you spend overseas, and if you live in, you got to be back 7 years and all that. Listen, if you can come back here 2 years before nomination, they get nominated and get elected, that all power to you once you're qualified. Mm-hmm. But I think it needs to be simplified, but it needs to be much narrower.
Mm-hmm. So, like born in the Cayman Islands
of
at least one parent who's
Cayman, who has to be Cayman at the time of your birth.
And Caymanian by any means, by grant, not necessarily just by birth.
I don't think it has to be by birth, because I believe that once you become a Caymanian, right, you're entitled. Now, here's a distinction. If my parents got Cayman status after I was born, I'm not eligible to run. But if my parent had status, so I am definitely a second generation Caymanian. Before I was born, I think you should be allowed to run.
Okay.
And I think it needs to be much clearer. I think it's clouded with too many ifs, ands, and buts there now.
Now, with this intervention that the UK parliamentarians, the Foreign Affairs Committee, in relation to the whole issue of giving people who are permanent residents in the Cayman Islands the ability to vote in the Cayman Islands.
But I think a lot of that, the ability for the UK Parliament to do that kind of thing is greatly reduced by the new changes. And people need to, the reason why those specific changes were looked at was specifically because of the House of Commons intervention and trying to write legislation for the Cayman Islands. Okay. And I believe while we didn't get the removal of 125, which is the clause that says Her Majesty's government has the right to make laws for good government, I think the conditions that have been attached to it, right, certainly give us a greater opportunity to resist, even if in the final analysis we cannot outright refuse. I think the removal of the governor's authority and ability to write legislation, I think the removal of his ability to refuse legislation, I think the clearer definition in the constitutional change that makes it unequivocal that Caymanians and the Cayman elected officials are responsible and in total control of domestic affairs. You know?
Yep.
And I think all of those clarifications are good, and it reduces the ability to do that. But I think there are a couple of other areas in the Constitution that we need to have a much broader discourse on.
And clarity.
Because it's 10 years old. You know?
Yeah. And there have been recommendations by previous constitutional commissioners in relation
but more importantly,
to changes, and they've gone into so many specifics and looked at some of those areas that have created questions and problems for us and has caused the courts to have to make interpretations as a result of that as well. When we come back from the break, if I may, since you were part and parcel of the initial negotiations with the Premier with the United Kingdom, I have a copy of the draft amendments here, and if we can go over them section by section
Sure,
for
absolutely.
our listening audience, we would certainly appreciate that. So folks, please stay tuned. Top of the hour, 9 o'clock headline news. When we return, the conversation will continue with MLA Mr. Ezard Miller.
Continuing the Caymanian tradition.
Let Cora keep my ground so clean.
The heart and soul of the Cayman people. Thank you for keeping the culture alive.
There's wisdom news every day. From East End to Georgetown, down into West Bay.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
This week, His Excellency the Governor, the Deputy Governor, and staff from their teams joined a growing number of individuals in the Cayman Islands certified in recognizing the signs of and preventing child sex abuse. Darkness to Light Stewards of Children training uses a mix of survivor stories, expert advice, and practical guidance to teach participants about making choices, taking risks, and supporting each other to prevent child sexual abuse. U.S. President Donald Trump has hailed the, quote, great American comeback in a speech to Congress that exposed sharp divisions at the top of U.S. politics. At his annual State of the Union address, Mr. Trump set out his case for another 4 years in office. He was speaking on the eve of his expected acquittal on corruption charges in his impeachment trial. And Pete Buttigieg and Bernie Sanders are leading in the first vote to choose the Democratic candidate to run against President Donald Trump in November's election. The vote in Iowa has been chaotic, beset by technical problems and delays in reporting results. Iowa's Democratic Party said data from 71% of precincts showed Mr. Buttigieg with 26.8% and Mr. Sanders with 25.2%. Those are your headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me, MLA Mr. Ezard Miller. We're going to talk now about the draft Constitution amendment orders that were worked on and were issued by the United Kingdom. They haven't come into force yet.
No, they were waiting now on the actual order in council. I think that they have to be placed on the table in the House of Commons or the House of Lords, one of the two, or maybe both, for a specific period of time. I mean, we went through an election, but I think that it seems like Lord Ahmed has survived.
Right.
And there's supposed to be, I think I saw something on the news that there's a cabinet shuffle that is imminent. I don't know what that means. But we're hoping that, I believe that if he stays as a minister responsible for overseas territory, he's committed to completing the process.
Okay. Now, was there something that was done prior to the elections in the UK to ensure that this document survived?
Well, I think that the Premier from this end did as much as he could, you know. And the fact that the big concern was if there was a complete change in government, e.g. Labour had taken over. But I think the fact that the Conservatives maintained the government, I think it has survived. And I think there's been correspondence. In fact, I know there's been correspondence between Lord Ahmed and the Premier and the Governor. And because remember, we had so I think it's going to be okay.
Okay, great. So let's look at the changes. The first one, change of the name of the Legislative Assembly. And it says that the Constitution is amended by substituting for the words Legislative Assembly and Assembly wherever they occur, the word Parliament.
I mean, that is basically window dressing. But, you know, when we travel as MLAs, you know, how many people have said to me, well, so you have a master's in legal affairs, right? And other acronyms. And Parliament is just a more suitable term for what we do.
Okay. So any law enforced in the Cayman Islands, any reference to the Legislative Assembly shall be construed as reference to the Parliament. And you may still see documents that say Legislative Assembly, but it means Parliament. And over the years, you know, everything will gradually
through revision
change
of laws
and stuff like that to read Parliament. Okay. And then there was an amendment to Section 12. To Section 32 of the Constitution. And it says here, Section 32 of the Constitution, exercise of the governor's function is amended by substituting for subsection 5 the following subsection. And it will then read, before exercising any function with respect to any matter mentioned in Section 55, 1A, B, or C, the governor shall consult the cabinet, but may act against any advice given to him or her by the cabinet, but the governor shall not be obliged to consult the cabinet concerning any function with respect to any matter mentioned in Section 55, 1A, B, or C, in any case in which the governor considers acting in his discretion is A, in the public interest, that he or she should act without consulting the cabinet, or the matter is to be decided are the matters to be decided are too trivial to require the advice of cabinet, or the matter to be decided are too urgent to admit the governor obtaining the advice of the cabinet by the time within which it may be necessary for the governor to act. The governor shall not be obliged to consult the cabinet with respect to any matter mentioned in section 55(1)(d). And it goes on to say, when the governor acts in accordance with this with subsection 5C, he or she shall, as soon as reasonably practicable, thereafter inform the cabinet.
Yeah,
that sounds a little convoluted, but I know you can
but what that does
for
is
us.
the Constitution, Section 55, deals with the governor's reserve powers, mostly to do with security and other stuff like that. So what they're saying is that we would expect him under normal circumstances he's now required, which he wasn't required before, to consult cabinet under normal circumstances. But they put in the caveats that if it is urgent, that if it is trivial and stuff, he can do it. If it is necessary to do it in the public interest, and then report to cabinet afterwards.
Yes.
And he's not bound to accept the advice of the cabinet if he thinks it's in the public interest to go against the cabinet advice on those reserve matters in 55.
And I guess this would the operation of this section would also depend on the type of relationship that the governor has with cabinet and the premier, as well.
Well, it kinds of tries to get around, because if the relationship is not good, he wouldn't normally consult. This requires him to consult. That's what. So that it's trying to keep the relationship at a distance, so to speak.
Yeah.
But if you have and if the premier and the governor has, it doesn't take. He can wake him up at 2:00 in the morning and say, "Listen, I'm going to do this."
Okay. And then there's a amendment to Section 44. Section 44 of the Constitution is amended in paragraph B by substituting for the word 6, the word 7. Section 44(2) of the Constitution is amended by inserting the words +1 after the words 2/5. Section 44 of the Constitution, the Cabinet is amended by adding the following new subsection after subsection 4. For the avoidance of doubt, it is declared subject to this Constitution that the Cabinet possesses autonomous and exclusive capacity in domestic affairs for any matter that is not one of the following. So the Cabinet will possess autonomous and exclusive capacity
on
in areas of domestic affairs. But if it is a special responsibility of the governor under Section 55(1), it doesn't have autonomous responsibility for that. A function which the governor must exercise under this Constitution or any other law in his or her discretion or judgment in accordance with the instructions from Her Majesty through a Secretary of State, or a function which the governor is empowered or directed either expressly or by necessary implication to exercise without consulting with cabinet, or to exercise on the recommendation or advice of or after consultation with any person or authority other than the cabinet. Please explain, sir.
Well, let's just deal with the 6 or 7, the first part of it.
Okay.
That is, basically, simple in that is one more minister being added.
Yes.
Okay. Then the 2/5 has to do with, because normally, in most constitutions, it would be a 2/3 majority to win a no confidence motion in the government.
Right.
But because of the small size of our legislative assembly, the formula that the British government adopted and the people accepted by referendum in 2009 was 2/5. The cabinet could not could be no more than 2/5 of the legislative assembly. Right. When you get into whether you got half a person or a quarter person, right? So by adding the extra minister, put one more person in there, right? So that's why they came up with this solution, because there was discussion of whether we should move from a two-fifths majority to a simple majority, right? The British government view, as I recall, on the simple majority, that would make it too easy. And what we didn't want was a roller coaster down. There'd be people who were changing government every time we go down to the LA. So
be like the Italians.
Right. Their thing was to say 2/5 plus 1. So what that means is that there's 3/5 of the Legislative Assembly, right? And like I say, because we got 19, it's going to be, half of somebody.
Yeah.
But that is not in the Legislative Assembly.
It would appear to me that...
So the 3/5 can remove the government.
Yeah. It would appear to me that if the UK had its way and wanted to have its way and say in relation to this, that they would recommend an increase in the membership of the Legislative Assembly.
Yeah. The more equitable would be to go from 19 to 21, right? You see? But that is not. I don't think that the government, and I certainly didn't believe that the country would at this time support adding 2 additional electoral districts to get to 21, right? But I think the mistake was maybe when we went to 19, we should have went to 21, because again, it would have been, you'd have had the 7 ministers in cabinet, right? Or 6 plus 1, which would have been 7, which would leave 2/3 of the 21 on the other side, or at least in a position to vote against the cabinet. Under this scenario, we need at least 1 person in cabinet to remove the government, then the premier. But we've proved that it can work, because we did it in, it was 20, or late part of 2012, right?
Somewhere around there, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
So the other part of that there above is where I was speaking to earlier, where it clearly defines now that the cabinet, which is the elected representatives in the Cayman Islands, has the
autonomy,
autonomy, absolute autonomy on domestic affairs. But it says it doesn't affect those items that are under 55, which is what we were dealing with, which are the governor's reserve
powers.
What we commonly call the reserve powers of the governor.
Now, if we can go back very quickly, if we were to add 21, if we looked at that, and not necessarily want to add 2 additional electoral districts, this may be novel for the Cayman Islands. It's not for other jurisdictions, like, for instance, the British Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
You have two large seats.
Well, if we go in, but here's the problem we have now is, because we now have 8 people in cabinet, because we have 7 ministers plus the premier, we need to go to 24 to maintain that 2/3 balance.
Yes, yeah.
But it is not impossible. In fact, it could be argued that you could have at-large candidates per geographic district.
Yes, yeah.
As opposed to nationwide, which would give you the 6.
Exactly.
You see?
Yeah.
But anyway, that's for greater minds for the down the road.
I believe you have a caller. Let's see if we can grab that caller before we go to a commercial break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Yes, good morning again, gentlemen.
Good morning again, sir. You heard did you get your answer earlier? You heard it?
Yes, and you did say people who were given suspended sentence were not able to qualify also, right?
Yeah, if it's exceeding 12 months.
Okay, I have a question. If the government, the premier and his government, wanted to have the leader of the opposition replaced, and the government are able to have the majority of the votes, are they able to vote to have the leader of the opposition removed, or does that have to be dealt with within the group of the opposition?
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, the leader of the opposition is clearly defined in the Constitution as the leader of the party that does not win the majority of seats. And if there's 2 parties on what we call the opposition bench, the one there that has the numerical the most
is automatically
the leader of the opposition. If there are no political parties, or if there is no political party that has a majority, if the political party is in the minority, once there's a political party, even if it's only 2 people, and you have 6 other people, that person is the leader of opposition under the Constitution. However, if there is no political party, the group of people can get together and say, and write a letter to the governor, which was what was done in my case.
Yes.
And write a letter to the governor saying, we, the undersigned members of the opposition bench, support Ezra Miller as leader of opposition. And there's really, it's one of the things that needs to be reviewed in the Constitution, because there is no provision in the Constitution to remove the leader of the opposition.
So what they basically follow is the reverse of what it took to choose it.
Well, that's how it should be. Yeah.
Yes.
But again, it requires the person to have the honor and respect for his people, as I did when they said they no longer supported me. And they wrote me a letter, and I said, okay, well, but they couldn't move me. It had to be me accepting the responsibility and the ethical and the correct thing to do, doing the right thing, to say, well, if I no longer have your support, then I will resign as the opposition. Right.
Otherwise, you could have brought a constitutional challenge.
They could.
Okay, caller, I want to thank you very much for that question. We're going to take a commercial break, folks. Please stay tuned.
That's the thing that needs to be changed, is that if the group decides they don't want it, the group should be in a position to write the governor and say, we no longer support Ezra Miller, and therefore we're supporting this person, and do that. But it required my resignation under the current Constitution.
Excellent. Folks, please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
2020 means perfect vision. And if you have your sights set on driving a new hybrid, then the time is now to check out the new RAV4 and CHR. Hold up. Just 2 of the many hybrid models that Vamped is bringing to Cayman. Whether you're looking for a smoother and quieter way of driving, or want a car that maximizes fuel efficiency while minimizing emissions, there are lots of ways a new hybrid from Vamped can make the difference in your life. Hybrids save fuel, run cleaner, reduce CO2 emissions, and even recharge their batteries without being plugged in. So focus your 2020 vision on a new hybrid from Vamped Motors, and we will see you through. Come to Vamped, home of the hybrid, located on Walkers Road.
I remember playing at 7 Mile Beach as a boy, eating mango by the sea, learning how to snorkel. My mother, she worked so hard to provide for our family so that we could have those moments. Seeing her age has been tough. That strong, capable woman, now in need of daily support, it's my time to be strong for her.
CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy understands the importance of the careful decisions you make every day for your family. Our staff work towards healthcare excellence and providing the most current and up-to-date training with pharmaceutical care, so you can feel confident in knowing that your family is safe with the right medication. At CTMH Doctors Hospital Pharmacy, we take care of your health.
Headlines.
With the latest headlines.
One
of Cayman's bright and shining young stars, local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news, updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. In the studio with me this morning, MLA Mr. Ezra Miller, and we're going over the draft amendments to the Constitution that have been agreed between the United Kingdom government and the government of the Cayman Islands.
We can say that draft is exactly what the Ordnance Council will be.
Will be, yes.
They're not going to be no verbiage change.
Right. And one of our listeners has written in and said, cannot agree with Mr. Miller with due respect, because so many multi-generational Caymanians happen to be born overseas. I think that must be in relation to your comments about
yes. But I can tell you that the reason why that has survived so long is because there were people serving in Parliament who were in that position.
Uh-huh.
But there are plenty of Caymanians who are not in that position now, because those back then there were medical reasons mostly why people went, but we're dealing with most of that locally. So I don't think there's a whole pile of people that fall into that category now.
And even with the qualifications to be an elector, the thinking behind the residency requirements, even if you qualified in other respects were Caymanian and everything else, had to do with the fact that people felt that, okay, you went and you lived overseas for all of these years and you want to come back now and be a part of Cayman, you want to get involved in the politics. Is it fair to allow you to just step right back in, or do you have to pay your dues by living here for a period of time? And there are pros and cons to that.
Was designed to reduce the competition.
Yes, yeah.
The position. I mean, let's be honest here, right? And I don't support that. If you're a Caymanian, you went overseas, you got good qualifications, you got good experience, etc., and you decide to come back. And like I say, if you have the capacity, right, to come back here 2 days before nomination day, right, get nominated, right, and go to win an election, then because you know that ain't gonna be easy. We'll see. You've been off the island for the last 8-10 years,
exactly,
and you're gonna come back here in 2 years. Nobody don't even know you. people who haven't left the island will lose elections.
That is true. That is true. Yes.
But it's also a part of one of the things that I have always advocated is that we should be farming the Cayman diaspora 100% more than what we're doing.
Yes.
To look for people with Cayman descent who have expertise and who can come back here and contribute, instead of looking for people that have no connections to Cayman at all. But we've always made it more difficult for them,
yes,
because we had this residency required, which we've removed. Again, if you're entitled, you're entitled. But we keep saying that, you're entitled, but then you got to get 5 other conditions. All of that is ridiculous, in my view.
Remind me before the show.
Punishing Caymanians.
Yeah, remind me before the show is over too. I want to get your views on your no votes in relation to those status grants by cabinet, as well.
Oh yeah,
it was
yeah,
interesting that your no was loud and clear.
And even in 10 minutes. Well, I'll explain it.
Sure.
Listen, my declared position on Cayman status is marriage and descent. And beside that, I really don't think the parliamentarians should be granting a status, or the cabinet. The 4 years I spent in cabinet, you're aware we don't grant his own, right? Because there's a process. And if you don't qualify the process, you're out. If there's a problem with the law that we keep hearing, that we have to do these through cabinet because there's some little thing wrong with the law, fix the law. Because what's happening is we are selecting people for whatever reason. I mean, one of those that we did last week, right? I am sure there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, that fall into that same category. You came here, you were a good person, you worked hard, you stayed out of trouble, but you don't have an investment, or you can't get 100 points. And we're selecting one. Obviously, that person has some connections, right, to somebody to move it up the chain. I don't support that. I voted against everyone that has come there, and I will continue to vote against it, because I don't think it is something that should be done by politicians. We should write laws that are easy to understand, that the public understands. If there's something wrong with the law, we should be man enough to say, listen, fix this. They did it before with a sunset clause, right?
Yes, yeah.
Well, if that was the solution then, I still believe that might be the solution. Bring the position back with another sunset clause on it, right? But don't select individuals. And this idea that people who come here and because they're super rich, right? Cabinet is granting them status. I can't support that at all,
Yeah, I mean, one of those.
But let me tell you something now, some of them who got it, my grounds did they face the badge, I have a letter written to me by one on his Ritz-Carlton stationery reminding me that he's aware that I voted against him.
Really? Wow.
Right? I had...
Was that intended to be a threat?
What else would you take it to be? Right? And that he, you know, and then he tries to soften the threat by saying, but he intends to be a good Caymanian. Right? I've had one that I voted against deliver a full case of champagne to my house with a card thanking me for supporting him.
I know that one.
Now you know that. No, I sent my PA the same day to carry it back. Right? You know, but so the people are watching, but I make no apologies, right? I really believe that we have to reduce the number of people who are qualified for Caymanians. We're already 1 and 1 is out the window now. You know, we're approaching. I think we're already past 2 to 1, right? And we're approaching 3 to 1. And what was done in the health practice legislation last week, where we removed the 6-year restriction on all healthcare professionals working at Health City to now be allowed to qualify for PR in Cayman State. That's in year 9. Let me tell you something. That is narrowing the gap for ambitious Caymanians who want to go into the medical field. Because remember, we're not talking about medical specialists, because one of the things that's wrong with your legislation, right, is that they can't license medical specialists under it. Everybody has to be registered as a regular doctor.
Okay.
But every time I try to help them, and they accuse me. The last thing they accused me now the last week was being racist, and I don't like Indians. The first Indians come to the island, I was involved in the recruitment, but they came through the front door, right? They were not allowed. I didn't kick no hole in the side of the barn for them, right? So, and we have to. Cayman has infinite size, and it's a small population. We just things are growing too fast, man. See. You know, the idea that we need 100,000 people, you know what that means? We're going from 60 to 100, that's another 40,000 cars, right?
Yeah.
So I'll have to leave home the day before to get to your show.
Yeah. Now, and back to your statement earlier about the grants by cabinet, and if there's a problem with the legislation, fix the legislation. We put in the 25-year residency grants for persons. One of those 4 had that 25-year residency.
Exactly.
Now, to me, you're making a mockery of that 25-year residency, or you're opening up the door to all of those others who have 25-year residency now to go to cabinet, even though it can cabinet can only grant 4 per year. I think what also needs to be sorted out is the exact path that a request to cabinet has to go for it to get to cabinet. Whether it shouldn't be a situation where you whisper to the board and say, send us one, to the possibility of you whispering to the board and say, send this one to us, or the board knowing, well, you know, we should send this one. To me, it has to be the situation has to be more special than that.
What is the criteria that the board is using
to
select these 4 people?
Per year. There must be some uniqueness, with it. It must be a situation where a person may be left stateless because of the position that they find themselves in, but it has to be something that is unique and compelling.
Even in that situation, the law should provide for it. It shouldn't be a political decision, you know. Anyway, we'll see. Like I had to disappear on you.
Okay,
but I'll be back next Wednesday, and I'll try to leave home at 5 o'clock. Right? If we get there.
If you leave that early, you can come riding with us.
Well, the alternative might be for me to buy a bicycle and ride in the morning, sit in my car. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks very much for being here. All the best, folks. We're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we will have an open line again for you for the next half an hour, so please stay tuned.
Your favorite family fun day is back. the 53rd Annual Agriculture Show at the Stacey Watler Agricultural Pavilion in Lower Valley. Theme, Agriculture for the Future. Ash Wednesday, February 26th. Family fun for everyone. Acrobatic show, cooking competitions, produce, plants, pony ride, petting zoo, rodeo, and so much more. Gates open at 7 a.m. with ample parking. General admission is only $10. Children ages 2 through 11, $5. And under 2 are free. Or buy your raffle ticket including entrance fee for a chance to win $20,000 and so much more. For more information, visit them on Facebook or 345agriculture@gmail.com. Put down your iPad and get back to your roots at the 53rd Annual Agricultural Show, February 26th in Lower Valley.
The 2020 Cayman Arts Festival is here, featuring internationally acclaimed top American brass ensemble, the Rodney Marsalis Philadelphia Big Brass, from the streets of New Orleans to China's National Center for the Performing Arts, and now in Cayman. Saturday, February 15th, 7 p.m. at the Marriott Hotel Ballroom. Tickets are $40 for adults and $15 for students. Tickets are available at www.caymanartsfestival.com. For more information, call 922-5550 or email inquiries@caymanartsfestival.com. Event sponsored by Butterfield Bank.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected.
For the record, with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matters. For the record, with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record, open line. Mr. Miller had to leave a little bit early. We want to thank him for his explanation of those draft amendments to our Constitution, and I will continue to go through those if time allows. One of our listeners says, I agree 100% with Mr. Ezer that Cabinet has no place in status grants, especially now that we have WORC as well. So I want to thank that listener for that. Just want to share with you a situation, and one of these amendments has to do with laws, the amendment. In the British Virgin Islands, there was an article in the BVI Platinum News, one of the newspapers there, and the headline is Governor Holding Out for Free Speech, Press Freedoms. And just a very short summary of what is happening there. Basically, the governor has legislation on his desk to sign, and it says that the governor, Gus Jaspert, is uncomfortable assenting to the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Act 2019. And the reason that he is uncomfortable and has refused to sign it so far is because it may have that amending legislation may have some impact. He feels that it has some impact, adverse impact, that is, on free speech and press freedoms. And so, because of the type of constitution that the British Virgin Islands has, the governor can basically refuse to sign that, to assent to that piece of legislation. And no doubt he's not doing it unilaterally, but he's probably doing it with the blessing of the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office and the Minister for the Overseas Territories in that regard as well. Again, just showing you, and comparing one constitution in one overseas territory to a constitution in another, and how some overseas territories are seeking to move their constitutions forward. And we believe that many more will do the same as well. Bermuda, I must say, Bermuda and the Cayman Islands, those two jurisdictions have always taken the lead when it comes to legislation, including constitutional issues, even though Bermuda's constitution has been around since 1958, 1959, around there, as well. And everyone says Bermuda's constitution was a pre-independence constitution, and that is why it remains the way it is today as well. Some amendments, but not a whole lot of amendments to it. So let's look at the other proposed amendments to our Constitution, right? Amendment to Section 48 of the Constitution. And it says Section 48 of the Constitution, which relates to the Cabinet Secretary, the position of Cabinet Secretary. It is amended by the addition of the following new subsection after subsection 4, and that is, the functions conferred on the Cabinet Secretary by subsection 4 may be exercised by the Cabinet Secretary in person or by officers subordinate to him or her, acting under and in accordance with his or her general or special instructions. So, what the Cabinet Secretary can do, the Cabinet Secretary can then instruct others to act on his or her behalf in certain instances. That can be done by the Cabinet Secretary. Then there inserted a new section, Section 54A, to our Constitution. And it says that the following new section is inserted in the Constitution after Section 54. And that has to do with parliamentary secretaries. Now, let me just give you a preview on this and to say that we have in this administration and in previous administrations, several of them, as a matter of fact, since the coming into effect of the 2009 Constitution, we did create positions that were called counselors. And those counselors were appointed to assist ministers in various functions within the ministries. It was a novel idea. It was creatively done in terms of interpretation of our Constitution, because the 2009 Constitution, at the time, you could find no place in our Constitution that spoke to the position of parliamentary secretaries or counselors for that matter. And I'm paraphrasing this now, but basically what the Constitution said then was basically that groups could be created to assist the government. I'll try to find the exact wording for it when we take the commercial break. I'll find it for you. But it like I said, it was creatively done in terms of coming up with the position of counselors. And there were calls for the Constitution to be specific and to make provisions. So what this new Section 54A does is creates the position of parliamentary secretaries. And it reads, the governor, acting in accordance with the advice of the premier, may appoint by instrument under the public seal one or more parliamentary secretaries from amongst the elected members of the parliament to provide assistance to the ministers. 2, a parliamentary secretary shall be subject to the direction of the minister concerned. 3, a parliamentary secretary shall vacate his or her office if he or she resigns it by writing under his or her hand addressed and received by the governor. B, he or she ceases to be a member of Parliament for any reason other than its dissolution. And notice here that they use the word Parliament, because when these amendments come into effect, the Legislative Assembly will be called a Parliament at that point in time. So best way to start it out, call them parliamentary secretaries, call the Legislative Assembly Parliament. You wouldn't want to call them Legislative Assembly secretaries and then later on then you say, well, Legislative Assembly secretaries mean parliamentary secretaries. So throughout these proposed amendments, they use the term Parliament because the Legislative Assembly will be called a Parliament. So the person will vacate his or her office if they cease to be a member of Parliament for any reason other than for its dissolution. Goes on to say he or she is required, they must vacate a seat if he or she is required by Section 64(1) to cease to perform his or her function as a member of the Parliament. D, he or she is not an elected member of Parliament when it first meets after a general election. They must vacate their seat also, the parliamentary secretary's position, if the premier vacates his or her office, or if the appointment is revoked by the governor acting in accordance with the advice of the premier by instruments under the public seal. So the premier can also recommend the revocation of a parliamentary secretary's appointment. That can be done by the thing. What is not clear here, and maybe I'm not a lawyer, so I can't necessarily interpret everything, but my question would be, what happens to a parliamentary secretary in the interim when the House is dissolved between the dissolution and the election of a new parliament? Just the same way that you have ministers who are caretakers during that period, do the parliamentary secretaries perform the same functions, or do they hold their parliamentary secretary position in the interim when the House is dissolved? And my answer to that would be yes, it should be. We know that members of the Legislative Assembly, for instance, are subject to recall in the event of an emergency during the interim period. So members of the Legislative Assembly, because they're subject to recall between this dissolution and election, I believe they also get their salaries during that period of time as well. So why not? If ministers are allowed to continue in their caretaker role, I would imagine that parliamentary secretaries would be able to do the same as well. Time for us to take a commercial break. When I return, we will go to Section 58 of the Constitution that talks about the National Security Council, and then some new other insertions into the Constitution as well. May not be able to cover all of them in the next 15 minutes or so, but that will be room for discussion later on. And of course, when we have the opportunity to have Dr. Steve McPhail on the show as well, we will get him to go over some of these with us also. Please stay tuned. For the record, we'll be back shortly.
Every Saturday morning at 9.
Bob
You got to turn around this plane. See my box down there with my parrot and rabbits.
Right here on Radio Cayman.
In Cayman, we are surrounded by water and make our living by farming the sea.
Come join us as we proudly present Caymanian Stories. Caymanian Stories
is brought to you by Exquisite Edibles. Call 917-5538 to place your cupcake order today. Exquisite Edibles, making life's occasions a little bit sweeter.
Preventing dengue is as simple as preventing mosquito bites. Use a mosquito repellent, wear protective clothing, and stay indoors during early dawn and dusk when mosquitoes are most active. Control the places around you where mosquitoes breed. Remove stagnant water in outdoor and household settings. As a weekly habit, persons should change the water in vases, clear the water in saucers under potted plants, and ensure air conditioner drip trays are free of stagnant water. Outdoor objects capable of holding water should be kept empty and preferably disposed of or put into dry storage if not used. These include open bottles and tins, watering cans, buckets, empty paint tins, and old vehicle tires. Do your part to control the spread of dengue. The dengue virus is an infectious disease transmitted through mosquito bites. Symptoms may come on as early as 4 days or as late as 3 weeks following an infection. There is no vaccine or specific medication to treat dengue. Symptoms of dengue include high fever, headache, pain behind the eyes, joint and muscle pain, and rash. If persons have any of these symptoms, they should go to the nearest health center or hospital. It is advised to drink lots of liquids and avoid medication that contains aspirin.
Headlines. With the latest headlines.
One of Cayman's bright and shining young stars.
Local, regional, international.
Headlines.
Turning to international news.
Updates on the hour between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. on weekdays. All the news when you want it. Tune in to Radio Cayman for hourly headlines of the day's top stories.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
In recognition of the contributions made by the late David Gerard Powell, the playing field at Theoline McCoy Primary in Bordentown will be officially renamed the D. Gerard Powell Playing Field. Come out to witness this important day in our history at the official renaming ceremony taking place this Saturday, February 8th on the school's playing field. After the ceremony, stick around to watch exhibition football games by the school's football teams and an exciting scrimmage showdown between the legendary Reds and Blues. See you this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. for the ceremony. Bring your family, friends, red and blue flags for the games at 7 p.m.
For the record with Orrett Connor.
Initiating system.
For information that matter. For the record with Orrett Connor. Continues right now on Radio Cayman.
Good morning and welcome back to For the Record. No guests in the studio. We're going to close the phone lines off now because I'll cover the rest as much as I can in relation to the draft amendments to our Constitution. So there's an insertion of a new section 58A and 58B to the Constitution, and says the following new sections are inserted in the Constitution after Section 58. Police Service Commission. 58A reads, there shall be in and for the Cayman Islands a Police Service Commission, which shall consist of A, the Governor as the chair, B, 3 members experienced in matters of the police law, of the police, law enforcement, the criminal law, or other matters related to national security, 2 of whom shall be appointed in writing by the Governor acting in accordance with the advice of the Premier, and the other in accordance with the advice of the Leader of the Opposition, and 2 members with qualifications described in paragraph B, appointed in writing by the Governor acting after consultation with the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition. Notice that in relation to the Governor's appointments is acting after consultation with, not acting on the advice. So he's required to consult. He can consult, but he doesn't necessarily have to follow any advice given. If it had read acting in accordance with the advice, then that would be the case. So in the and I'm going to read it again. 3 members experienced in matters of police, law enforcement, and criminal law on matters related to national security, 2 of whom shall be appointed in writing by the governor, acting in accordance with the advice of the premier, and the other in accordance with the advice of the leader of the opposition. So those 3 members, 2 of those 3 will come as a result of the advice given by the premier and the leader of the opposition. Then there are 2 members with qualifications described in paragraph B, appointed in writing by the governor, and these are the governor's appointments, now acting after consultation with the premier and the leader of the opposition. So in relation to these 2 members appointed by the governor, he only has to consult with the premier and the leader of the opposition, not acting on their advice. It goes on to read, no person shall be qualified to be appointed as a member of the Police Service Commission if he or she is a member of or a candidate for election to the parliament. So no politicians will be on the qualified to be appointed as a member of the Police Service Commission. Says that the office of a member of the Police Service Commission other than the governor shall become vacant, A, at the expiration of 5 years from the date of his or her appointment, or such earlier time as may be specified in the instrument by which he or she was appointed. So 5 years, but it could come earlier than 5 years. It also becomes vacant if he or she resigns office by writing under his or her hand addressed to and received by the governor. Notice that it says addressed to and also received by the governor. I don't know if they learned something from the not Turks and Caicos, BVI in relation to this, because as you know, we had a situation there where one member of their assembly resigned and the resignation had to go to the speaker, but it went to the clerk instead, and there was a whole big thing in a court case over that. So this one makes sure that you have to resign in writing under the person's hand, and it has to be not only addressed to, but it also has to be received by the governor. So you address it to the governor, and the governor has to receive it. And the seat becomes vacant, also the position becomes vacant if he or she became a member or a candidate for election to the parliament, or if the governor acting in his or her discretion directs that he or she shall be removed from office for inability to discharge the functions of that office, whether arising from infirmity of body or mind or any other cause, or for misbehavior. And it goes on to talk about the fact that if the office of the member of the Police Service Commission other than the governor is vacant, or a member is for any reason unable to perform the functions of his or her office, the governor acting in a manner prescribed in subsection 1 for the appointment of that member may appoint a person who is qualified for appointment as a member of the commission to act as a member of the commission, and any person so appointed shall, subject to subsection 3, continue to act until he or she is notified by the governor, acting in his or her discretion, that the circumstances giving rise to the appointment have ceased to exist. So acting appointments in terms of can be done by the governor. Goes on to say that no business shall be transacted at any meeting of the Police Services Commission if there are less than 4 members of the commission apart from the governor present. So it sets a quorum of at least 4 members, and that doesn't include the governor, right? Goes on to say that any person proposed for decision at any meeting of the Police Services Commission shall be determined. Any question proposed for a decision at any meeting of the Police Services Commission shall be determined by a majority of the votes of the members present and voting. If not on any question, the votes are equally divided, the chair shall have and exercise the casting vote. So Decisions are arrived at by vote, and if there's a tie, then the governor has the chair, who is the governor, has the casting vote. And it goes on to say that the Police Services Commission shall be served by a secretariat, the members of which shall be public officers. And goes on to say, subject to this Constitution in the exercise of its functions, the Police Service Commission shall not be subject to the direction or control of any other person or authority. Then there is a section, and this is fairly long, but I will just say that it has to do with powers to appoint, etc., to offices of the police force. And it says that the power to make appointments to offices of the police force and to remove and to exercise disciplinary control over persons holding or acting in such office shall vest in the governor, acting in accordance with the advice of the Police Service Commission. But the governor, acting in his or her discretion, may act otherwise than in accordance with that advice if he or she determines that compliance with that advice would prejudice Her Majesty's service. So, irrespective of what we say, my view, in certain instances, the governor still has lots of power, and reserved powers as well. Hopefully, we'll be able to continue with this. One of our listeners has asked me to share a copy of this, and I will provide them with the link. Lots more in relation to the amendments. All couldn't be covered today, but we will choose an appropriate time and an appropriate guest to go over these amendments as well. There are those who feel that, and I believe that it has been agreed to as well, that there will be a road show in relation to these amendments to the Constitution, to alert people as to the changes. Roadshow will be taken, hopefully, to each district, and qualified persons will be able to explain in layman's terms to the people of the Cayman Islands that what these entail. We do not expect that there will be a referendum on these changes to the Constitution, because the determination was made that these changes were such that they could be agreed but by the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition. The UK has accepted that, and hence we have these draft amendments to our Constitution. Folks, I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman, and by extension For the Record, into your homes, into your vehicles, as you traverse the busy roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. I also want to remind you that we are our brothers and our sisters' keepers. There is always someone out there who's less fortunate than we are, and I ask you to extend a helping hand to them. If you can't do that, then I suggest you donate to a worthy charity, because we always want to consider those who need, not necessarily those who want, or even those who crave. I say to you, have a great day. Continue to support your radio station, Radio Cayman. Join Sterling, Dwayne Banks at 12:15 for Talk Today. And as usual, we ask the good Lord to bless these three beautiful, wonderful Cayman Islands.
For the Record is brought to you by Vamped Motors, the only authorized Ford and Toyota dealership serving the Cayman Islands. Cayman Pharmacy Group, with a location in West Bay and professional pharmacy at CTMH Doctors Hospital. The Cayman Pharmacy Group has a location for you just around the corner. Seaboard Marine, with over 35 shipping ports, find your shipping solution by calling 949-4977 or visit seaboardmarine.com for competitive rates.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.